Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Today's video, I want to talk about your biggest obstacle in pursuing a Filipina. If you haven't quite gotten to the point of looking for one, or what is, or what was your greatest concern, and is there anything I can do to help? I found my wife in the Philippines back in 2015, so that was just over 7 years ago. So I've been through that process of getting to know her, even though it was very quick, and we got a spousal visa, went through that process, and she's been with me here for over 6 years. So I do know a few things about foreigner-Filipino relationships, so please subscribe here at Love Beyond the Sea. I've got almost too many videos to count. It's over 1,070 videos, and could use more subscribers. Please subscribe over here and go through the playlists, and you can look at different categories there. I've had a lot to say, and I hope to continue to have a lot to say about singleness and marriage and men looking for love overseas. So please leave some comments here in the comment section. A person's concerns could be, well, the very start, flying, not just going to the Philippines and going to another country for possibly the very first time, but I've talked to some guys who are not crazy about flying. It could mean just being 30 to 35,000 feet in the air. It could be, getting from place to place in the various airports. Could be just all the sitting there. I don't know. It could be all of those things. We've made the trip about 5 times now, and it can be a real grind. I don't think the actual flying part is really anything to be scared about. Before I flew for the very first time, a long time ago, I was leery of flying, but that's not really been a big concern, so I wouldn't be overly concerned about that one. Now, there is the price involved with flying. USA, I don't know, average ticket here from the Midwest just to get to Manila, probably $1,500 per person. That's pretty low from what we've paid for 5 years, and then if you're going somewhere after that, you still have to pay for another flight possibly. And right now, actually, I think they still mandate you have to be vaccinated. I think they still have the One Health Pass. I think they still, correct me if I'm wrong, you have to test negative for COVID before you leave and before you come back. Otherwise, you can't go, or you have to stay an extra 10 days in the Philippines. Now, that I can see being a potential deterrent or obstacle. And then again, the cost, not just flying there, but you've got to stay somewhere, eating, transportation, taxis may be getting overcharged there, as taxis can charge you more. Any place can charge you more. So that's something to be concerned about. Also, a young woman, if you're looking for a young Filipina, if she doesn't have a baby, might as well just assume that she's going to want one. Just so you know. Filling out immigration papers, you find somebody you like, and then it's like, well, what now? Maybe a year to get to see her. Hopefully all of the current immigration that we're allowing in this country does not slow that down for anybody. But there's a lot of paperwork, and you want to make sure you do it right. There are costs for spousal or fiance petitions, and if it's fiance visa and you get married, then there's another big charge for adjusting your status. Online dating could be that you've never dated online, and might be uncomfortable talking to somebody from so far away and not having them be right there in front of you, not having met them before, or know much about them before that. So online dating can be an impediment as well, but that's where a lot of people, including myself, have met their wife. Different culture. It is different, and I do think family comes first. I'm not saying it should, but I'm saying I think that's what you should probably expect. It's a different culture, and you'll find out more about that as you go. You could be concerned about being scammed. A lot of the scams start when a man gives money to a Filipina who he has not met in person. And pretty much all the time that's not a good idea. If she says she doesn't have money for a load, she needs to get a job so she has money for a load. And Filipinas tend to have, a phone. So if they don't have a phone, then they should get a job and try to afford a phone and a load. That's something that they should do. I would again reiterate, no matter what, just don't send money. I mean, I think that's a wise thing to say. When you're ready to propose to her, if you go visit her, you're sure you're going to get married, well, okay, you can send her some money. But if she's asking you for money, if she knows all about the process of receiving money, then that means she's done it before, probably had other guys, foreigners. Does that concern you? You'll have to think about that. The visa process for us was 8 months, but I had an agent hired. It went very fast. Other people could take a year, and that can be perfectly normal. These days, I don't know, but at least you can get to the Philippines if you're not, afraid or hesitant to do that for some of these reasons. Some people, this is just a list I put together a long time ago, but some people are concerned about, HIV. For example, they've heard that there's, higher HIV cases in the Philippines, and that may be true. I think I saw that myself at one time. I don't know if it's true now or if that's limited to a certain place. That could be a concern. They could have heard of a lot of stories of relationships that went bad. I know I hear it all the time on mostly my TikTok channel, which has been doing very well. So that still is out there. But again, don't send money no matter what until you're ready to propose to her. Then that takes care of a lot. And if she's not asking for money because she works for her own and she doesn't want you thinking that she owes you to take care of her, that's a good sign. You might be concerned what others think. You know what you think, but maybe friends, relatives think you're crazy, you're foolish, you're going to get scammed, you're desperate, whatever. That could be a deterrent to keep you from finding love beyond the sea. You could think, well, I don't know her well enough, and you won't. I mean, how many years does it take to spend with somebody that you can't be together with in person to know her well enough to get married? I just wanted to know few major things about my wife, because we got married very, very quickly, and we're still married 7 years later. But it wasn't a fear of mine that I didn't know everything. I knew I didn't know everything. I knew that over time, by living with somebody, you get to know them more, and you just take it slow. Like somebody said today on TikTok, relationship is like a slow cooker. You let it simmer. Love shows up over time, or more and more over time. You have to remember, you don't know each other very well at all. So I think things are going to go slower, I would guess, on the emotional side, the romantic side. Also, you might be concerned you won't make the right choice, and that goes without saying. Just try to know her as well as you can. You won't know everything until after you're married, but ask good questions, that people interested in marriage would ask, and keep your eyes open for red flags. You can be uncomfortable webcamming, but I think that's just something you get better at. I mean, they're right in front of you on the screen, but they're thousands of miles away. Most Filipinas, if not all of the ones that I talked to before I got married, were easy to talk to. I just make sure they're on time and they're not making excuses for not showing up on time. Now, she is very far away, so you can't just drop by every weekend, so you have to make the time count that you have with her. A lot of people, including myself, spent 3-4 hours a day talking to their Filipina. There's no rules for that, but talk as much as you can and learn as much as you can. Take good notes. You could be concerned that you don't have much in common, and you probably don't. But you can always try to learn some things to do in common. And the main thing, I think the focus is for the husband is to take care of her. Whether he knows a lot about her, whether they have a lot in common, his job is to take good care of her. Too much family emphasis, that might bother you. And if it does, I think it would be better not to pursue a Filipina or a woman from a poor country, because you probably get driven crazy at some point if you're just, if you think that she'll just say, well, now that I'm in America, for example, I leave the past behind, I start a new life. No, she's going to be spending ample time on social media with her family and friends, certainly her family, and at times you may feel like they're more important than you are. You think about it, and they've been around her life a lot longer than you have, so the family emphasis is just what it is. You could be concerned that she won't really love you. Well, take a look at some of my videos on what love really is. Love is something you do. It's got nothing to do with feelings. It's something you do. And the better you do it, probably the more feelings of closeness, that kind of love, you'll feel. But it comes down to just doing your job and loving her, being good to her, forgiving her, being patient no matter what. No matter what. That's part of love. And it's not always going to go easy. But nobody said love ever was. The Bible talks about bearing with one another in love. You'll do a lot of that, no matter how good you find her before you marry her. You might think that the overall adjustment to being together will be too big, too weird, too strange, or maybe you're not comfortable talking to a younger woman if that's your starting point. But you shouldn't be uncomfortable with that. I mean, if you're feeling guilty about something, you're probably doing something wrong for you. So your comfort level with doing overseas, very long distance relationship is something that you need to come to terms with. You could be worried about homesickness. She will be homesick, of course. That trip to your country probably seems like an eternity to her, and she'll have a lot of time to reflect on leaving. It's a big thing. Take it slow. Be patient. Patience is your friend. You could be concerned that once she gets to your country, other guys will try to interfere. And not saying that couldn't happen. We can't control what other people do, but your wife can certainly control her responses and let you know if somebody's trying to interfere. Then you can do something about that. You could be concerned she won't be faithful. Again, you don't know the future, but you can't control anything but yourself and how you treat her. So if you're confident that you're listening to her, you're trying to understand her, trying to defer to her, trying to be good to her, trying to be patient and forgiving, then you shouldn't be too concerned about unfaithfulness. You could say, well, I don't know what to say to a younger Filipina. If you go to my website, lvbts.com, designed by Mr. E, near the top there's a tab about questions you can ask a Filipina to make this ice-breaking easy for you. And it goes from the very initial get-to-know-you stages, icebreakers, to trying to narrow the field, see who you're more compatible with, to when you're serious about asking her to marry you, and even questions after you get married. So you can even print those off, and that will help you learn a lot about each other faster. You might be afraid there aren't any sparks or chemistry, and there may not be. I mean, I think men typically feel more emotion for the woman, and it kind of sounds like I'm saying they're more romantic, but I think our feelings are stronger for them, and we show it differently. We feel it differently. We're men, And she may like you, but the chemistry may not, the excitement, enthusiasm might not match yours, but that doesn't mean that she couldn't make you a good wife for the rest of your life. You could be concerned about Tampo and the silent treatment. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I've made a video on that or two. Just, give her space and don't try to argue with her about it. And you should be fine there. You could be concerned that your own family won't accept her. So that's something you need to talk to about, your family. You might be worried she'll be on social media too much. She might. You might think that you'll marry too quickly. Well, go slow. Go as slow as you're comfortable with. I waited a long time, and I didn't want to wait any longer, and I felt I was pretty well prepared. You're never really prepared for the being married part of it, but you can prepare yourself mentally for the right attitude and approach and realistic expectations and so on. And that's something you can do. Maybe you're uncomfortable with her family for some reason. Maybe you're thinking she's not really attracted to me. I don't know how important that is to you. It is to some guys. You might be thinking that a relationship could be more difficult with a Filipina, and compared to a local domestic woman, and could be. I think in some ways it is because of the family first principle, and she'll want to go home, of course, every so often, I would think. And she'll want to have a baby. If she doesn't have a baby, she's going to want to work, and that causes another set of issues that I've tried to talk a lot about. Trying to defer to her, and I mean you can't just let your wife do everything she wants. If you're totally against it, you state your points, and then you just have to stand your ground. But whenever possible, I would recommend deferring to her. You might be reluctant to teach her how to drive if she's going to work, and then teaching her about money. But you have to trust her with these things, because if that's what other people in your country do, that's what she needs to learn to do, I think. How will she handle finances? Just made a video about that. Well, if she's starting from ground zero, hopefully she's at a job and she knows the value of money. Pretty much that's probably all going to be going to her family, however, when she's working a job in the Philippines. And of course, some of that is going to continue when she gets married to you, but you just have to talk about that. Set the ground rules. Dollar amounts you can't really establish until she has a job. My wife has a very good job and makes really good money, so she can afford to send more back and still help us out as well. You could be concerned that she will lie to you. After all, she's so far away. How do I know she's being honest? Well, you just ask for transparency, initiate honesty, and talk about the things that are important to you. I don't think you need to, go too crazy and ask to see her passwords and stuff like that. I think, hopefully she's honest with you if she has more than one Facebook account, which would be common. And any question you ask at some point should be acceptable if the relationship is moving in the right direction. Like you might want to marry her. You can ask her, how many boyfriends have you had? When is the last time you talked to somebody? Now, she does have the right, of course, to talk to anybody she wants until you propose to her. So it's a two-way street. Another thing you might think to yourself before I go here is she might want to retire in the Philippines. She might want you to retire there with her. And some of you guys, that would sound great. But others, for other reasons, you're uncomfortable with that idea and you just don't want to deal with it. But, there is a lot that goes into the situation with dating Filipinos. So I'd encourage you to check out my YouTube channel here if you want shorter videos. The TikTok channel is doing really well. And, of course, nothing comes easy. But I think it's worth at least pursuing love beyond the sea.